Good morning. Nice Sunday morning on Maui. Many times we, especially the younger student, is apt to believe that the spiritual way of life, the contemplative way of life, is one without discipline. And the very opposite of this is truth, because there is no life that requires more disciplining than the spiritual life. The human life, as much as we think that it is disciplined, is more or less an undisciplined one, because no attempt is made to control or little attempt is made to control the nature of our thinking. We are more apt to accept everything that we see or hear and then rejoice over what we think is good and start to moan over what we believe to be evil, so that we don't really discipline ourselves to ask, is this as good as it appears to be, or is this as good as evil as it appears to be? But rather, we accept appearances in accordance with our own judgment. And in the spiritual way of life, that cannot be done. As a matter of fact, the entire spiritual life is built on the rejection of appearances. In the metaphysical life, such as you have in Christian Science and Unity, New Thought, you always have the rejection of an appearance of evil, the denial of an appearance of evil, the realization of the unreal nature of all that is appearing as evil, as error. But when you get to the spiritual life, you have to go beyond that, because you have to deny reality to that which appears good. You have to unsee the humanly good to the same extent that you have to unsee the humanly evil. And the reason is that spiritually discerned, there is neither good nor evil, and the entire spiritual universe is built on that. Why callest thou me good? Or, neither do I condemn thee. In other words, I am not sitting in judgment on what appears to be evil, but neither am I accepting the appearance of good. Why? Because the only real is the invisible spiritual. And that can't be seen with the eyes, and it can't be heard with the ears. And therefore, the discipline on this path lies in rejecting every appearance, whether it is good or evil, in the realization that whatever it is that is of God is invisible to the human senses. Now, the effect effect of that, when it is successfully accomplished, is this. If I am confronted with an appearance out here, and I judge it to be evil, I immediately have to resist evil or overcome evil or destroy it or remove it. If, on the other hand, I am confronted with an appearance out here of human good, I am forced to accept it and rejoice in it. And the danger of that is that the very thing that appears to me good may in and of itself be evil, or may change to evil, or its effect upon one may be evil. The commonest illustration of that is that everybody would agree that $1 million is good, or getting $1 million is good, and yet getting $1 million has ruined more people than it has helped. It has changed their nature. It has made them grasping. Even people who have little or nothing and who ordinarily are free and joyous in sharing it, the very moment that they have a little, begin to start hoarding it and grasping it and laying it up for a rainy day and fearing to spend it, so that what would appear to be good has for them turned into an evil. And so it is in the human picture. Everyone, without exception, rejoices at a birth, and everyone without exception sorrows at a death. And certainly more trouble is caused in the world by birth than ever was caused by death. So if you are going to judge from human appearances, think of the tragedies that take place with all of this rejoicing at births. And think of the nonsense of much of the sorrowing at death. Because strangely enough, there is just as much sorrowing when a person goes on in far advanced years and has outlived their usefulness to themselves or to anyone else on earth. And yet the sorrowing goes on, as if something were being lost or something were being hurt. Now, these are but extreme illustrations of the fact that it is unwise to judge of good or evil. But spiritually, it goes beyond being unwise. In the spiritual sense, it becomes absolutely a wrong thing, and for this reason. There is a power that is within each and every one of us. And this power has as its function the creating, maintaining, and sustaining of harmony in our existence, or when for any reason harmony is taken from our lives, its function is to restore it. Now, you can follow this power or principle by following the experience of Jesus Christ through the four Gospels. He makes it very clear that his function is to heal the sick, raise the dead, feed the hungry, forgive the sinners. That's his mission on earth. Yet not his mission. It is the Father that sent me. For I am my own self, am nothing. In other words, he then is bearing witness to the presence of God. In every demonstration, I am my own self, am doing nothing. For I am my own self, am nothing. If I speak of myself, I bear witness to a lie. Therefore, it is not I who am good. It is not I who am healing. I am bearing witness to the presence and the power of God. Now, how can I bear witness except by being still? If I do anything other than be still, I can no longer say that I am doing nothing and that I am nothing. I have become something the moment I do something. Therefore, when I am confronted with appearances, now, makes no difference whether humanhood calls the appearance good or humanhood calls the appearance evil. I am confronted with a human appearance, and if I would bear witness to the presence of God, I must do nothing. I must think nothing, and I must have no judgment. I must immediately, in order to make myself nothing, I must realize within myself there is neither good nor evil, there is but God. And now, as I look out at the erroneous appearance with no judgment, there is neither good nor evil, there is only the presence of God, and then I'm still. And now, the Father within me can perform its function, and its function then is to destroy the appearance and reveal God's glory, His own being. So that even though to our sense a healing appears, it isn't really a healing, it is the destruction of the material picture and the making visible of the spiritual one. But there is only one way in which we can do that. And that way is to have no judgment as to good or evil in the appearance, and then let the Father within me do the work. Then and then only can we say, I had nothing to do with this demonstration except to bear witness to God in action. Now, this reminds me of an event that actually happened in Michigan, where a woman was healed of an incurable disease after it had been pronounced incurable, and the husband, in deep gratitude, out of deep gratitude, went to the practitioner and offered him a check as a token of appreciation. And in complimenting the practitioner said, "Oh, I didn't do it. God did it." And so the man put the check in his pocket and said, "Oh, well, then I don't owe you anything. I'll give the check to God." Now, as a matter of fact, insofar as the healing is concerned, the practitioner was right and the man was right. The practitioner had not done the healing, he had merely borne witness to God in action. So therefore, there was no money due him for a healing. But where the man was wrong was this, that unless the practitioner had some private income, there wouldn't be anyone around to bear witness to God's grace if that man had to go out and hang telephone wires or tend furnaces or whatever else his job may have been. So therefore, paying him money wasn't for healing. It was merely to keep him free of any other obligation except keeping his consciousness so clear and so free of entanglement that he could always be in the Spirit to bear witness. And so it is that when you witness healing works, always remember what you are witnessing. You're not witnessing the power of an individual, for an individual has no such power. You are merely witnessing an individual who is keeping themselves free of the appearance world and maintaining themselves in a consciousness of no judgment, so that the grace of God can come through, because the grace of God cannot come through the human mind. And the human mind means anybody's mind still indoctrinated with the belief in two powers. Therefore, regardless of how much knowledge of truth one may have, no matter how many years one may have studied truth, they may still have no healing power, because it isn't how many statements you intellectually know or can declare. It has to do with what degree of attainment, what degree of the actual awareness of the non-power of appearances. And therefore, the spiritual path is one of discipline, because the disciple, the student, must begin at some moment of their career to start withholding judgment from the appearance world. In other words, always to remember, be not afraid, it is I. This one quotation of the Master would be enough to help anyone attain their release from the world of cause and effect or the world of appearances. Merely by applying to every appearance, be not afraid, it is I. Be not afraid, it is I. And in that way, you see, you are instantly divesting yourself of any judgment as to the nature of the appearance. And when the time comes, and in proportion as this consciousness is attained, the appearances in this world automatically change as they touch your consciousness. If your consciousness is not reacting to good or to evil, if it is able to pierce the veil of illusion, even the veil of good illusion, and see through that it is nothing to fear and nothing to gloat about, it is I. I constitute the nature of spiritual creation. And what you are seeing is not the spiritual creation, but a finite concept of it, and it is sometimes good and sometimes bad. It is sometimes rich and sometimes poor. It is sometimes good. It is sometimes healthy and sometimes sick, sometimes alive and sometimes dead. But none of that is true of God's kingdom. There is another of the Master's statement that helps us to discipline ourselves. My kingdom is not of this world, and therefore everything that we see or hear, we can instantly close out by realizing that's this world, but it's not my kingdom, the Christ kingdom, the spiritual kingdom. And therefore, neither loving it, hating it, or fearing it. Think of the discipline involved in the midst of what seems to be a problem for oneself or another, to refrain from all attempts to change the appearance. Think now, just think of any discordant appearance that you like. Any discordant appearance you've ever seen, heard, tasted, touched, or smelled, and then see the discipline that is necessary to refrain from trying to alter it, change it, do something to it, and absolutely be able to say, my kingdom, the place where I live and move and have my being, is not of this world. Therefore, I have nothing to do about this world except to know that it is not of my kingdom. Now then, as you withdraw your judgment, which means your hate, your fear, your love of the appearance, it is then that this invisible, the Spirit of God which is in you, can immediately go to work and change the appearance. When the disciples were afraid at sea because of the storm, they awakened the Master, who wasn't a bit afraid. He was sleeping right through it. But when they awakened him, he made no move to stop the storm. And he didn't pray to God to stop the storm, because he knew he was facing an illusory appearance, and so he merely said to the disciples, be not afraid, it is I. In other words, omnipresence is truth. There is no presence but God. Oh yes, your eyes are seeing something else, and that's why your heart is fearing. Your eyes are seeing something else. As a matter of fact, your eyes are seeing something more than a storm. They're also seeing a selfhood apart from God, and you're afraid you're going to lose your life. So you're not only witnessing a storm, but you're witnessing a selfhood apart from God. Now, you must remember that in the human picture, all right, in the human picture, there is a law called self-preservation, is the first law of nature. And it is that law, if we can dignify it by the name of law, which is responsible for all of the evil that's in the world. Because a person would never steal if it wasn't that they are preserving their human sense of life. They're preventing themselves from starving or being a failure. They're preventing themselves from lack and limitation. In other words, they're preserving their own sense of identity. There never would be a war, because nobody ever goes to war except to preserve what they believe is their human life or their human supply. The horror of it is, you can see that they're always willing to send their children off to get killed as long as they can stay home and be saved. People's children are never as important to them as themselves. The children must go off and get killed or wounded or demented so that we can stay home and have abundance and preserve our lives. And that's behind every war, self-preservation. They call it patriotism because they say it's the preservation of a nation, but there is no nation. A nation is only a group of individuals. So really, then, it's the perpetuation of ourselves that makes us willing to sacrifice our children so that we can be preserved. Now, in the storm, then, the disciples aren't really fearing a storm. What difference would a storm make to them if their lives weren't in danger? Who cares about whether the wind is 40 miles an hour or 100 miles an hour if there's no danger to one's life or limb? It is only when the danger comes in to one's selfhood that the storm becomes evil. Now, to realize, be not afraid, it is I. I, God, is the only life. I, God, is the life of individual being, and it can't be lost, and it can't be destroyed. Therefore, fear not. Let the storm do what it will. Once the fear of the storm, or that is the fear of losing one's life, is gone, who cares whether the storm goes on or not? Nobody. It was only while one's life or limb was in danger that they cared whether the storm went on or did not go on. So it is the same way. Who cares how many germs there are in the world? Except in the degree that we can be made to believe that the germ can destroy our life. That sets up the antagonism in us, and we are going out now to wipe all the germs off the face of the earth. Why? What have we got against germs? Nothing, except that they threaten destruction to our own life or our own health. But supposing we came to the realization that my life is indestructible, that neither life nor death could separate me from God. Now what difference would germs make? And in that realization, the battle against error, that particular form of error, would cease. And we'd say, none of these things move me. None of these things move me. My life is God. My life is in God. My life is with God. And neither life nor death can separate me from God. And do you not see that in that realization, death itself has no longer any fears or terrors? No one can possibly fear death once they realize that neither death nor life can separate one from the life which I am, the life which is my being. And so it is that when the Master says, my kingdom is not of this world, therefore you don't have to fight, remove, overcome anything in the external world. When the Master says, be not afraid, it is I. In other words, I am the life of you. I, God, the Spirit of God, is your life, your being, the substance of your body. Be not afraid for anything in the external world. Then you are automatically adjusted to a state of consciousness that is no longer glorying over the good appearances out here or fearing the evil appearances out of here, but you are looking out at them with a sense of detachment, as if you were an onlooker, a beholder, with no interest in changing, improving, destroying, just a beholder. And in the attitude of a beholder, your personal mental powers come to a stop. And it is as if you were watching a sunrise or a sunset. Now, nobody in their right mind has any belief that they can hurry up a sunrise or a sunset, or that they can slow one down, or that they can make one more beautiful. Therefore, in order to watch a sunrise or a sunset, you completely become a beholder watching nature at work, watching God at work. You never enter into the picture. You never seek to change it, improve it, heal it, remove it, destroy it, or make it better. Always you are at the absolute center of your own being as a beholder. And as a beholder, you can truthfully say, what a beautiful sunset, what a beautiful sunrise God is bringing about, or nature is bringing about. You could be in an art gallery, and you could watch the works of the great masters. You could stand before them. But you would be a beholder, because all that you are trying to do is draw from the picture what the artist placed there. You're not trying to improve the picture for him. You are not trying to destroy it. You are not trying to give it qualities. All that you are trying to do is draw forth from the picture what the artist created and placed there for your vision. Therefore, you do not enter the picture, you behold it. You behold it. If you enter anything, you may find yourself eventually entering into the consciousness of the artist and beholding exactly what he beheld, because you are now of one consciousness, one mind. When you hear a symphony, you do not enter the symphony, you stand off as a beholder, this time listening for what the composer had in mind. You're not trying to improve his work, nor are you trying to destroy it. You're merely trying to understand it, even if it sounds like bad music to you, incorrect music, offbeat music. You still are not trying to change it. You're standing still without judgment, trying to grasp what the composer had in mind. And it would not be surprising if eventually you found yourself right inside the consciousness of that composer and hearing the music as he heard it when he wrote it down. Then you'd have the same understanding of it that he had. Now, so it is, God created this universe and all that is therein, and it is good. Now then, to our finite sense, this is not true. Some of it we see as evil, and some of it we see as good. And strangely enough, the man right beside us may be seeing what we call good. He may be seeing as evil. What we see as evil, he may be seeing as good. So therefore, it is really not a matter of seeing this universe the way God made it. We are seeing it through our ignorance of God consciousness, just like we might be seeing the painting or hearing the music through our ignorance, and thereby not discerning what the artist or the composer had in mind. Now, as we look out at this world of appearances without judgment, it is as if we were saying, God made all that is made, God's Spirit made all that is made, and therefore all that is spiritual. And I now am beholding a spiritual universe, even though I don't at this moment understand it. In fact, I can't see it the way the author, the way the grand architect did it. We often call God the grand architect of the universe. The grand architect of the universe, he who designed and formed this universe. But we can't see through his eyes while we're looking out of human eyes, and therefore, by looking at this world without judgment, it is as if we were trying to see what God sees. In other words, enter into the consciousness of God. And the only one way we can do it is not by making the effort to enter the consciousness of God. That will be a barrier. The only way we can do it is to withhold judgment and be still. Just see neither good nor evil, be a beholder, and then let something take place within you. Let the Father present the picture to you. You just bear witness. You just behold. But not with any idea of healing anyone, not with the idea of improving or enriching anyone, merely with the idea of beholding the picture as God made it and as God sees it. Now, the only way that the mind of God can be consciously expressed through you is when you are withholding human judgment as to good or evil and letting yourself be a beholder. And then the Spirit of God goes through you, changes the picture as it seems to be, and reveals to you that which was always there, though finite sense could not discern it. I suppose another illustration would be this, that the flowers right there before us, which are so beautiful and so colorful, and yet, once you know this, you discover that those flowers have no color. There's no color in those flowers. There's no color in this rug. You are not seeing the flowers as they are. You are not seeing the rug as it is, because color doesn't exist. All that is taking place out there is light waves. And when they strike our eyes, we interpret the rate of vibration as color. A certain vibration strikes red, and another vibration purple, and another vibration blue. But it's not out there. The color out there is colorless. It's color when it touches our eyesight. And for that reason, that if your eyesight isn't accurate, you may be seeing it as one color and another person as another color. But it isn't. It isn't. It's the way your eyesight is interpreting it. And so it is. There is no color in this rug. This rug is colorless. But it has a certain rate of vibration of light waves. Those light waves strike your eye, and something within your eye interprets the light waves as color. It is the same with sound. If in a forest the largest tree were to topple over, there would never be a sound heard in that forest, because no sound is taking place. There are invisible sound waves set up by that falling tree. And the silence is absolute and complete until it touches an eardrum. Those sound waves must touch an eardrum before there can be any sound. And if they touch the eardrum of a deaf person, there is still no sound, no matter how loud the sound may appear to be to you. So that we are always judging by the limitation of our finite senses. We are not seeing this world as it is. We are seeing this world as our mind interprets it. And that is why in some parts of the world people still go around naked. And nobody thinks there's anything wrong about it, and the reason is that it isn't wrong. It can't be wrong. The Father says, "Who toldest thou that thou wast naked?" Naked or not naked is a state of mind that we have evolved. But it is our concept of life that has brought that about, not life itself. Therefore, as you live the life of contemplation, you find yourself gradually withdrawing judgment from appearances. And when you see or when you are told about erroneous appearances, it does not react or register in your consciousness. And your mind is a blank. You have no desire to change it, alter it, improve it. You are just the beholder waiting for God to reveal it to you as it is. Therefore, Scripture says, when we awaken, we shall behold him as he is, and we will be satisfied with his likeness. In the life of a spiritually awakened person, he is completely satisfied with the people of this world because he knows them as they are. And even though he is beholding the errors that they're going through, he also knows that it is no part of their being. It is only a part of that educated sense which is trying to preserve an already immortal life, or trying to get more supply for one who is already joint heir with Christ and God. And therefore, he looks with compassion on those, not whom he says are in sin, but those whom he knows are in ignorance of their true identity, in ignorance of the nature of God's world. Now, just see this. Supposing you come to the realization that I and the Father are one, that the life of God is your individual life. Therefore, your life is indestructible, and that neither life nor death can ever separate you from God, which is life eternal and immortal. And you begin to lose your fear of death. You begin to lose your fear of the burglar with a gun in his hand, remembering you have no life to lose. Now then, as you look out and behold the disciples afraid in the storm, then they kind of bring a smile to you when you say, what are you fearing? Your life? It's God. It's indestructible, immortal, eternal. Death? Even death can't separate you from God. And then you see, you don't condemn him as a sinner. You have compassion for his ignorance. It is in the same way that when you hear, when you realize the nature of the tree of life, and that we are all one, and that we all have access to the same source, and then you read in the paper about somebody stealing, can you call him a sinner, or do you not immediately have a feeling of compassion for his ignorance? Because he thinks he's a branch by himself, having to add something to himself, and he's merely in ignorance of the fact that he's a part of a tree with access to all that the tree has. And so you no longer sit in judgment on him as a sinner. Now you begin to have compassion because of his ignorance. Awake, thou that sleepest, and learn that you are heir of God. Awake, thou that sleepest, and learn that God is your life. Neither life nor death can take your life from you. It goes right on whether you live in the east or the west. It goes right on whether you live in this house or that house. It goes right on whether you're a child or whether you are aged or whether you've gone into the realm beyond. Life is a continuous experience because life is God. God is life. So, you come to a whole new state of consciousness through the contemplative life, in which you still behold the evils that are going on out here, but no longer are you in judgment of them, no longer do you condemn them, no longer do you misunderstand them, but now you have compassion because you understand why they're taking place, and you know that they must continue to take place until the individual is awakened. Once the individual is awakened to the fact that life is indestructible, immortal, and eternal, he can't fear death. Once he can't fear death, he can't know death. You never can know anything that you don't fear. You can't know anything that isn't a part of your consciousness. And when death is no longer a part of your consciousness, you can't die. Leave this scene? Yes. Yes, because in a few days, the form of these flowers will go, but not their life. The life will go on and be manifested in more orchids, and more orchids, and more orchids. And it'll be the same life. It won't be a different life. The life that is in these orchids were the life of orchids 10,000 years ago. The same life. It has been indestructible. And it's still here, and it's the same life. And your life, and your identity, your consciousness, will still be here 10,000 years from now, but in a different form. You will not go, only your form will change, and that is inevitable, as you can prove by the fact that when you came into this world, you might have weighed 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 pounds. And the form has been changing from then. Even the form of the organs of the body have changed. Even organs we didn't have when we were born have come into being. And some of those at a certain age stop having their being. But we go on just the same. No change in us. We're the same person, the same life, the same consciousness. But the changes take place in our bodies. The child body is not that of the adult body, and the body of the aged is not the same as the body of the adult. But the individual is the same, the life is the same, the soul is the same, consciousness is the same, only the outer form changes. And so it will be that unless I'm lifted out of this life, I will still be sitting at this table 1,000 years from now, even though the form may be different. As a matter of fact, the sex can be different. The reason is that I, and this applies to you, has no sex. Once you become aware of the I that I am, you will find it completely independent of body, completely independent of sex. Then it can manifest in either sex. But it'll still be I. Still be I. Because I am spiritual. I am one with God. I am of the nature of God. Therefore, I am without finite form, yet I can manifest as in through finite form. Once you realize that, the sting of death leaves you, because you will know then that I am I, and I will always be I. I will always be my state of consciousness, except that I will progressively elevate, just as I have elevated from school to business and business to this. So I will continue to elevate until there is nothing finite left. But I is the secret of the transcendental life. Once you realize, be not afraid, it is I, and I is God, all fear goes, all judgment goes, all condemnation goes. And then even as you look out here and witness the discords, the feeling is there. Just think, if they could awaken to their true identity, And that's all there is to it. They're not evil, they're not bad. They're just fulfilling the law of self-preservation. And just so that we don't sit in judgment on them, remember, we do the same thing. When we throw a bomb at somebody else, or if we kill in self-defense, we are doing just what this world is doing. We are indulging the law of self-preservation. And the self we're trying to preserve is a finite sense of self that has no contact with God, and that's why we're trying to save it. If we understood our true identity as one with God, we wouldn't have to try to save it. God can govern his own universe. God can care for his own universe. Therefore, in the face of a danger, we can withdraw judgment and realize whatever is real is God maintained and God sustained. Whatever is real is of God. Whatever is real is permanent and eternal. And I don't have to lift my finger to save it, to preserve it, to do anything about it. I merely have to behold God in action. I must sit without judgment in the realization this is God's universe. Be not afraid, it is I. My kingdom is not of this world. My kingdom is intact. All that which God hath joined together, no man can put asunder. And I and my Father's life are one. Therefore it cannot be put asunder by sin, by disease, by lack, by death, by war, by any other means. Nothing can put asunder my life, because my life is joined to God's life. It is one. And God maintains my life eternally, immortally. And neither life nor death can separate that or change that relationship. And therefore, in the face of a danger, we stand by without judgment and bear witness to God. And then afterward, when the harmony's been restored, safety and security is realized, we can then say, I in my own self did nothing. The Father within me did the works. Well, of course, there was something I did that was very important and very difficult. It was come to a place of being a beholder. That is where the discipline of the spiritual path comes in. The ability to discipline oneself so as not to look out here and see a picture that has to be changed, altered, improved, or removed. But the ability to look out here and say, be not afraid, it is I, and then stand still and bear witness while God brings about the transformation of the visible scene. Be not afraid, it is I. My kingdom is not of this world. Cease ye from man whose breath is in his nostrils, for wherein is he to be accounted of? These are the three scriptural passages that have been the foundation of my healing work ever since the early 1930s. Before that, I was doing healing work since 1930, but without knowing why or how, or what the principle was. It was just, you might say, a gift of God. But in the early 1930s, I was given the revelation of those three statements. Cease ye from man whose breath is in his nostrils, for wherein is he to be accounted of? Don't try to change him, improve him, heal him, and certainly don't judge him or condemn him, but take no account of him. In other words, be still. And then, my kingdom is not of this world. Therefore, do not judge by the appearances of this world, because in my kingdom, harmony is.